Alright, so we decided to finish the San Mai knife. We're going to be putting handle scales on them. I'm going with this laminated wood here. It's got alternating colors, starts out black and it's got some green and some brown in it. But I think that this will be a good handle material for the San Mai knife, especially since it didn't turn out quite like we were hoping. This stuff is relatively inexpensive and I still think it'll look pretty cool putting it on there. So I've already went ahead and drilled this one and started to drill the other one. Kind of forgot to record that, my bad. But pretty simple process, at least for me. There's several different ways to do it and I don't always do it this way. I had a little bit of an issue with the knife. I think last video you saw it kind of had a little bit of a tail on here for your hand to catch, and it really just I didn't like it. It just didn't feel quite right. And putting up the scales on it, the very end of it was basically sticking up a tiny bit higher, and as I tried to kind of grind it down, it just wasn't working out. So I knew that I could still chop it off somewhat evenly and still have a good handle, and that the scales would line up and fit better, so I decided to do that. But anyway, like I said, I've got one already drilled, and we're just going to go ahead and drill this middle one here, and then this side will be done, and then they'll be ready to basically be glued up. The only other thing I'm going to be doing is sticking some liners in there. I've never used these before. This is vulcanized paper, very thin, so you'll definitely still see it. It'll just be a really thin line in between the scales and the blade. I mainly have been using G10 or some form of a harder, less malleable material, so interested to see how these work, but I think they'll work out good. The reason I chose these two is because this blade is forged. I don't have a surface grinder. I just have my belt sander and just a little angle grinder. So I did my absolute best to get this thing straight. Without a surface grinder or a grinding attachment, it's pretty hard to get it straight. I do have basically it's a disc sander that's attached to the 4x36, and so I basically used this here and just kind of helped to flatten out this part, and this works really well. So most people who have either 1x30 or some sort of a small setup may have one of those attached to the side of it. Sorry for the hand there. But anyway, that seemed to work out pretty good for me, so that's something to consider if you don't quite have the proper stuff to get things flat. Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna basically finish up this last hole, and then we're going to punch little holes through this paper, and then we'll get her glued up. Yeah. All right, now that we got that third hole drilled, the only other thing to think about before we start the glue up is the very front. So I went ahead and already shaped the front part here to make sure that that's not going to be an issue for us. It's really hard to do that part once you've glued it up, especially with the limited tools that I have. So I went ahead and did that and got the fronts basically just ground down enough to where it's relatively smooth, and I think I'm gonna be good with that finish. I brought it up to about 120 grit, and I think that will be good for what we're trying to accomplish with this. So now that we've done that and everything is lined up and drilled, it is time for the glue up. Basically what I do for that is I have this little movable stand here. I get all my pieces that are gonna go on here lined up, and I'll get my 5-minute epoxy and just coat each one of these layers and stick them all together, and then get the pins in there and put a bunch of clamps on it. So I'll probably move the camera closer to get a shot of that, and we'll do a quick time lapse of that and have you take a look. All right, so we're back. We have let this epoxy dry overnight. I just woke up, come out here to check on it, and it looks like it's dried pretty well. We'll go ahead and take the clamps off, and we'll see what we got. Normally, when I do the glue ups, I'm not in a rush. I feel like I kind of rushed through this, not necessarily for any particular reason, but the last few knives that I've made, at least when it comes to the handles, I've taken a lot of time, you know, beforehand to put the actual blade onto the scales and trace basically a line around the knife of where the scales are going to be, and then I take them to a bandsaw and trim them off, basically to get them closer to the actual knife blade. That way I don't have as much grinding to do. I really didn't do that this time, not necessarily because I was in a rush. I mean, I kind of was, but I also did not have the bandsaw, and so I have made this little table here out of wood, and I think this came off of one of our desks that we have inside the house. But basically you have an area for a bandsaw to slide onto here, and then it's just a little tabletop thing where you can put a bandsaw in here, and then you can use the tabletop to cut out pieces and stuff. And anyway, you see these a lot in knife maker shops. You could buy, I think it's called like Swag Off-Road or something like that. I don't know. They sell like $100 or $200 tables. Don't do that. That's just wasted money. You can spend that money elsewhere in your knife making adventures. Make yourself something. It's super simple. You know, you can figure it out. Just cut out a piece of wood and, you know, just kind of do a homemade version of it. This works really well. I don't actually own a bandsaw, and that's the reason why I didn't do it on this particular one. I do borrow the bandsaw from work a lot. I just forgot to bring it home this weekend. So that is the reason why we're going to have quite a bit of extra sanding to do on this handle. But that's okay, because this particular material is going to sand pretty well. Kind of depends on what wood you have or what kind of material you're using. This stuff right here, I've used it before and it grinds pretty quick, so we'll be all right. Anyway, so there's the clamps off of it. Now we have basically just a big chunky block, and we got to do some grinding to get rid of it and shape it into a handle. So we'll do that next. Before we shape the handle, I wanted to take a second and talk about a video that just came out from another YouTuber. It's Tyrell Knife Works. He just had a really cool video come out about a sharpening system that he created. And he's very cool. He explained it and shares it with the knife making community. So I have basically mimicked that idea. And essentially all it is a belt grinder with a horizontal belt such as this, and a bar that comes up and over top of the belt. I'm just using a vise right here and bent a straight bar into a 90-degree to come over. And then the only other thing it utilizes is this clamp that you can buy online. It's a Win knife clamp jig thing. I don't know. Anyway, it was like 40 bucks, pretty cheap. And essentially all it is you rest the back of this plastic right on the back of the bar, and then you turn it on, and it gives you a very consistent pull right across the belt. Someone gave me this pocket knife at work. You can see I just ran over it with the 120 grit yesterday. This thing was all chewed up. It was dinged and dented, and it is pretty well back to being just about perfect. And man, wow, that is pretty cool. If you've ever tried to do a secondary bevel and making something sharp, it's doable, but to get it really consistent from start to finish is the tricky part, at least for me, for somebody new. So something like this really helps out. I just thought I'd take a second to show that. You can buy these on Amazon for 40 bucks, and you can get creative and make your own setup with a bar that you can adjust for different angles. You could make it up higher if you wanted to for a steeper edge, or down low for a more gradual edge. But anyway, thought I would just say thanks to Tyrell Knife Works for that juicy video, because that was a good one. Thanks. Before we start shaping the handle, I'm going to take an angle grinder and just cut the excess of the pins off real quick. Really, those are the only two that were sticking out pretty bad, but that's a good start to get them somewhat flat or closer to the actual scales. We'll probably spend a lot of time trying to get all this back to the actual edge of the handle, which stinks, and yes, it's a lot more work than I normally would have to do, but we'll go ahead and start that and get it chopped back to the handle, and then we'll start kind of shaping the actual handle. It'll be a pretty thin one, but that'll be all right. I think it'll be good for this knife. This knife is probably, I don't know if I'll be carrying it every day, but it'll be a good everyday type knife that we can make a sheath for and carry with us when we go to work, or, you know, any type of outing. This would be a pretty good one, so we'll do that. So just very quickly, you can see that this thing can get right up into this radius and really get in there and do some work. You know, I didn't even know that this thing was a tool. Didn't even know it existed until I saw another YouTube channel that makes knives and suggested to get one. They're pretty inexpensive. I think I paid under 100 bucks for this one. Yeah, they really do work well, especially for someone like me who doesn't have a 2x72. and a small wheel attachment or any of the fancy stuff to get in there. You could use a Dremel, and they also have, like, you know, little things you can stick into a drill press. I also don't have a drill press. But anyway, yeah, this is a pretty cool tool. The oscillating spindle sander was recommended by Eric at the Rivers Experience, so thanks for that recommendation. He has some really cool stuff as well. I would say those the people that have come before people like me who are just starting out really do make the difference, not only for inspiration but for tips and tricks. I would say Eric with the Rivers Experience, he's probably one of the first ones I started watching. He has really great videos. Tyrell Knife Works, of course. I like Elijah with Fire Creek Forge. He has a lot of how-to stuff and really good, informative videos. Aaron with Ailey Knives, although he doesn't post much, at least recently, but he has a ton of stuff from the past that's really helpful. There's a lot of others out there too, but those are the main ones that I've tried to pick up tips and tricks from. So anyway, yeah, this was one of them. Definitely worth checking out if you don't have one. All right, so now that we have taken the time to kind of grind around the profile of the handle, and we've taken it back to the actual metal all the way around the knife. At this stage, once that's done and the pins are done, we can start kind of contouring and shaping the handle. And you know, I think for the most part, we're sitting good right now. We got everything pretty well cut back to the knife. And for me personally, I'm still fairly new at knife making and handle shaping. I know when I first started out, my first couple of knives, they really tended to be pretty square and blocky. I would just kind of round the corners. I'm trying to get away from that and trying to take a little more time and really trying to kind of do like an oval cross section, if that makes sense, make it a lot more comfortable and natural feeling. So I feel like with each knife that I do and each handle process, I get a little bit better, and the shaping turns out good. And really, it's just kind of taking your time and doing a little bit and feeling it and doing a little bit more until it feels really good. Another good tip I would have would be, if you're going to start coming in, let's say, and rounding this side over, and you spend 33 seconds on the oscillating spindle sander doing this, then make sure you turn it around and hit that same section on the other side. So you want to try to do the same amount and the same, I don't know, angles and whatnot, the contouring, as evenly as you can on both sides. And so yeah, so I kind of use a combination of the oscillating spindle sander along with some of these other belt grinders that I have. I utilize the larger wheel here sometimes. That can come in handy for kind of rounding over some of the corners. I also use the 1x30 too. I can take this large homemade platen off the back and can put on the little tiny platen that it came with, which then essentially gives me an area up here where I've got some slack that works out really well for handle shaping. So I'll probably do some of that. I'll film a little bit of that, and then we'll see where that gets us. All right, so excuse me. So spend a little time shaping out the handle, kind of contouring this in. I just obviously not done, just at a stopping point here, and got me to thinking, you know, this laminated material is pretty basic when you do like a basic contouring and not a whole lot of, you know, what am I trying to say? Not a whole lot of activity with shaping. You know, if I just was to round everything over and make it comfortable in the hand, it would feel good, of course, but you would get patterns like this that are just kind of basic, a green, brown, black, that sort of thing, which is exactly what I got on this other knife that I did, this one. And it's essentially the same thing. It's layered G10. And because I just kind of basically shaped this one to where it was comfortable, it had lines going this way, which looked pretty cool, I guess. And you can still kind of see the remnants of those lines here. It was basically just straight lines like this. And I thought, you know, it's cool and all, but I think it would be better utilized to do the rock pattern on it. And I'm glad I did, because it gives it a little more character. Is it the best one out there? No. Am I an expert at shaping handles and doing the rock pattern? No. But is it cool to me? Yes. And that's what matters. So I think what I'm going to decide to do on this one is something similar to that knife. And I think that by doing that, I actually like the feel of the rock pattern texture. It just gives you a little bit better grip. This is a working knife, so you know, you want something that's got a good grip. Not that it wouldn't have a good grip, smoothing it all out, but I think it would be better utilized doing a bunch of, you know, grind marks to make it look like it's beat up, kind of that rock pattern, sort of. So I think by doing that on this one, we might get, you know, a little bit similar result where we see a cooler pattern on the outside. Visually, it will look cooler, but it'll also serve as a good functioning blade. So I think that's what I'm going to decide to do. And last time I did this one with a Dremel because I didn't have the oscillating spindle sander yet. So I just used a Dremel and a little small tiny grinding wheel to do this one. I think I'm going to try this one on the oscillating spindle sander. I've got a the smallest wheel that it comes with I put on, and I'm going to go ahead and try to do a little bit of that on this, and we'll see how it goes. So at the very start, we're starting to see some cool visual stuff kind of from the side. All we're really doing is just kind of coming in at different angles to try to make it look natural. I'm also going to be putting on a bigger wheel here in a second, so that not all of the scuff marks are the same size, and I think that will help to even it out and make it look more natural. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll flip it back on once we've got some more finished, and we'll see what it looks like. All right, so we've got the handle shaped. I think it turned out pretty good for the most part. I just put some boiled linseed oil on the handle, and yeah, I think it turned out all right. It's got the rock pattern texture on it, which kind of, you know, I think it does the knife some justice. It's got the forged texture on the end. Get it down here where you can see it a little better. But yeah, just kind of a rough, down and dirty working knife. So yeah, not exactly what we were hoping for with the etching part. We were really hoping that that would come out good, but it just didn't. So we're still making it into a usable, workable knife, which is totally cool. Anyway, yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. The only thing we have left to do is to put an edge on it, and I'll be demonstrating this system here that Tyrell Knife Works posted, and we'll be using that system here to put an edge on this blade. So stay tuned and we'll do that next. All right, so we're getting ready to sharpen the knife, basically putting the secondary bevel on it. It's really thin, so we're going to start with a 400 grit. We did so much hand sanding on this that it's basically a 0 edge, but we're going to be utilizing the Tyrell Knife Works idea of having a bar come across here, and then we've got this clamp, this knife clamp that is made by Win, I believe. You can find them online pretty cheap, and you just rest it on the back of this bar, and then we're going to be able to drag the blade across the belt and get a real consistent bevel. So I'll show you that now. you can see that it has a really consistent edge running along this, especially something with a recurve like this. This is actually the first time I've tried it on a blade that has that recurve in it, but for the most part, minus right up in here at the very start, it looks really good. I'll be able to kind of adjust the rate of pull here when we go up to the 1,000, and hopefully that'll help even that out. But we'll go ahead and do the 1,000, and then we'll do a shot of the knife here when it's all finished. All right, so that concludes the San Mai knife build. I think it turned out pretty good. You know, it's got, you can still see the line here running along the blade, and even though it's not etched, it still gives it a cool characteristic. It's got the forged texture up on the spine of the knife in the ricasso area, and then we got the handle pretty well, and the secondary bevel using this sharpening system right there from Tyrell Knife Works was a really good tip, and I think we got this edge really quite sharp. We'll do a little paper test here. Definitely seems to be pretty solid. I like to test the whole edge, you know, essentially running the paper the entire way of the blade to make sure we don't have any bad spots on there. But as you can see, it's pretty good. So yeah, anyway, that concludes the San Mai knife build. So thanks for watching, thanks for hanging out, and hope you enjoyed watching this. I hope maybe you learned something. That's honestly what I'm trying to do, is just to document the process and show the different techniques that I do in hopes that it might help somebody. I know for me, when I first started out, back in January of this year, so I've only been doing it 6 months, but 6 months ago when I knew nothing, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and certain people had really good tips and tricks, and it's really helped me out. So like, comment, subscribe, share with anybody you think that might be interested, and thanks for watching. Like I said, the next build that we'll be doing will be a Damascus knife, and really excited for that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll get a good blade at the end of it. So thanks again, and God bless, and peace out.